Trying to wrap my head around this again. It's been a while since I saw this one. This occurs to be CO2. So we have our little aquarium, and the amount of CO2 I would guess we were talking about increasing the amount. Photosynthesis increases throughout the day. So we're getting more basic. We're getting an increase in CO2. Okay, sorry, I'm just trying to think about what's going on here. So photosynthesis is taking CO2 out, the water is becoming more basic. I think I'm happy with A still. But again, number 33 is one of these questions that's going to separate, it's going to separate your 100%ers from your 95%ers. There's always a few questions like that. So that's one of the trickiest ones on this test, I'd say. Number 34, sodium oxide. That's pretty straightforward. What's the formula for the compound ammonium sulfide ions combine? Ammonium sulfide is NH4,2S. Nickel 2 hydroxide. So it tells you the charge. Letter D, NiOH2. Happy with that. You'll notice the naming ones are super easy if you know your naming rules. The name of the compound PbSO32 is, so Pb is lead, lead's multivalent, you need to have your Roman numeral in there. SO3 is sulfate, or sulfite, sorry. So that's lead 4 sulfite, crisscrossing your charges, you end up with that. The laughing gas, nitrogen oxide, we have 2 N's. 1 oxygen, so dinitrogen monoxide. Covalent naming rules question. Letter D. 39, what's the formula for diphosphorus tetrachloride? So P2 tetras 4. Remember all of the Roman numerals, all the Roman numerals are on your periodic table. It tells you what 1, 2, 3, or not on your data booklet. It's all there. So be careful. Always look it up. Don't just guess. 40, we're getting to balancing. That was a 1. 41 was letter D. Gave you the correct ones. 42, we did already, was D. 43, there's always a question like 43 on the tests. Gives you a picture or a diagram of what's some sort of a reaction that's taking place, and you have to know what reactants and products there are. Super important. You know how to do that. 44, agree, refute, again. Done that one already. 45, this is the one you mentioned, I think, Abby, in chat. Number 45 on page 22. Let's look at it. Experiment, the base calcium hydroxide was reacted with an unknown acid producing calcium chlorate and water. What is the formula of the acid used? See how we can do it here. Calcium hydroxide, so that's CaOH2. I have some unknown acid, calcium chlorate. I'm going to have to look up chlorate in my data booklet because I don't remember the charge of that guy. Let's find it. Chlorate, as I flip through my pages here. Chlorate ClO3 with a charge of -1. Calcium has a charge of +2. All right, so it kind of is, it's definitely a tough question. The important thing is to remember that generally speaking, if you start with it, you have to end with it. And in this case, we have the ClO3 ion. And it's an acid-base neutralization. So we're going to have something with an H over here for sure, because it's an acid. What are we going to have tagged onto the acid? Well, because we ended with ClO3, we're going to start with ClO3. The H and the OH combine together to give us water. And then we have the Ca from the calcium and the HClO3. So the ClO3 there. So that's definitely a tough question, but something you could probably do if you just wrote it down. Just kind of working backwards, I suppose, was the easiest thing there. So remembering a neutralization, you get the H and the OH together to give you water. You get the ClO3 and the Ca combining to give you your CaClO3, your salt. Yeah, so balancing wouldn't really get you very far, but remembering what a neutralization reaction looks like is the important thing here, and they kind of make you work a bit backwards, so definitely a tricky question for sure. 46, the role of catalyst in a chemical reaction. Causes products to form more quickly. Yeah, letter B. There we go. Now, I'm going to probably say that you didn't get too much farther than that in 40 minutes. For those of you who are still with me, did anyone get past 47? I can keep going, I don't mind, but I have a feeling you probably would like or benefit from a few more minutes going through this. I have a feeling some of you probably started this test a while ago because you've had it for a few weeks now. No? All right. What I'm going to do then is I will call it there. Call it. Thanks, Abby and Bria. What we're going to do next day is something similar, I guess. Really, there's no much more new material to go through. So the last two classes, Wednesday and then the following Monday, it's kind of up to you guys. If you guys have questions that you want me to go through, I will be happy to go through them. And there are, practice exams, all sorts of other things that you guys can do. If you want additional materials, I can get them for you. If you want me to go over stuff in class, I can. I looked at the schedule, and what's today? 15th, 22nd. So we will have class again on Wednesday. It'll be kind of similar. We'll go through anything you guys want me to go through. Will I go through anything? Yeah, science related for sure. If you want to go through old learning guides, if you have questions that you found on the internet that you want me to go through, I don't have any issues going through stuff like that. And we'll finish off the rest of the provincial next class. Yep. So we're about halfway done it now. We'll do the other half next class. Yeah, I'll go over it just right at the beginning of class. I'll just start going through it. If you guys can look at the second half of the exam between now and Wednesday, that would be great. And then, yeah. If you want, I can go through it right now, Ava, if you just want to throw it into chat, and that can save you a few days of waiting. So yeah, we're going to go through this stuff next day. On the 22nd, what I was trying to say was we have an open house. So not an open house like just bring your family. If you have questions about science, it's 2 days before the exam. So our exam's on Friday. Not this Friday, but the following Friday, the 24th. On the 22nd, so the Wednesday before the Friday, from 1 to 3 at McWilliams Center. If you have any questions, you want to come in, you just want to go through some exams. I have a few older exams, so if you just want to go through more exams, or if you have questions, something specific you're really struggling with, you want to come in for help instead of going through it online, then we'll have 2 hours there, 1 to 3. If something else comes up between now and then, send me a message. We can find time to meet if you can't make it on that Wednesday, but there you go. It's more related to secondary succession and forest fires. Which is one of the main causes for it? Is this a specific question, Ava, or I'm kind of confused as to what the question's asking or how you're kind of posing the question, I suppose. Secondary succession and forest fires, which is one of the main causes, like what causes forest fires? I don't know if that's what you're trying to get at. A cause for secondary succession, maybe? These secondary successions all kind of like, you always have a natural disturbance which causes it. So we talked about tsunamis, you have flood, you have drought. Those are kind of the big ones that usually will initiate a secondary succession scenario. It's a lot of S's. I don't know if you can, pinpoint a cause for a forest fire. You could have climate change combined with drought combined with a lightning storm, or you could have, just lightning and wind. I don't know if that's answering your question or just confusing it more. Well, you're putting that in, Ava. Next day we'll start by going over the second half of this exam. That's all I really have for today, so if anyone has questions they want to stick around for, they can. If not, I'll see you guys on Wednesday. I'll just get Ava a second here to finish the typing in her question, and then we'll call her a day. So if you want to sign out, by all means, I'll see you guys later. Okay, will biodiversity be greater in a few years following a forest fire as opposed to what it was before, since forest fires provide more room for growth and new life? That's a tricky question, the way you've kind of posed it. So biodiversity, would it be greater? I would think that biodiversity would be higher before the fire, because you have typically a forest fire would come through a climax community. So when you're at your climax, you're going to have as many sort of species that can coexist as possible. But before, after a fire, you've limited what can grow. So you're not going to have really big trees, which, are an ecosystem in themselves, allow, plants and animals to live on the big tree itself. So I could be wrong on that, but I would say that maybe you're confusing the word biodiversity and growth. So in the scenario where you have fire go through and then lots of new trees are growing, well, yeah, there's a lot of growth. It's, lots of plants are growing in favorable conditions, but the biodiversity, the diversity of plants that's there, wouldn't necessarily be greater. There's less habitat for big animals, there's less habitat for small animals because of all the trees are gone and all sorts of stuff like that. So I would say biodiversity would probably be going down. It takes a couple decades for climax communities to form, for sure, but how long does it take for organisms and life to get back into that area? It depends when conditions are favorable for it. Let's think about something like, an animal that, maybe deer isn't the best example. We'll just pick deer because it's the first animal that popped into my head. So deer like forests, right? They like to live in trees, treed areas. They have places to hide and, dense undergrowth and things like that, where there's grass for them to eat. So if I was a deer, when would I move back into an area? Well, if it's completely burnt down, it's just completely open, there's nowhere for me to run and hide, so I'm not going to live there. But if there's really big trees, then I would come back. So once the trees are big enough for me to hide, then that organism would maybe move back. So I'm thinking every organism is going to be a bit different. Not all organisms are just going to come back right away. Some are going to wait and then eventually make their way back. So I don't know if that answers your question. If you had something like a specific one, I'd be happy to look at it, but hopefully I'm helping more than hurting. I'm hoping this is a question that just kind of was off the top of your head, not something that was really specific in one of the tests or something like that. So to answer your question in as short as few words as possible, an organism will come back when the conditions are right for it to live there. So if the trees it needs are growing, or things of that nature, not just fire came through, I'm going to move back into where I once was. Well, you were in that area for a reason. We'll see you guys later. Those of you who are signing out, Ava, hopefully. Okay, perfect. The important thing is to know the difference between the primary and secondary. So primary is you have bare rock, you have lichens move in, then moss, and then things get bigger and bigger and bigger. Whereas secondary succession, you have soil established already, and then things just grow out of that soil. So primary succession, you're building soil. Secondary succession, you already have soil. Hopefully that's good. If you're still confused on it, I'd be happy to talk more about it next day. But for now, we'll see you guys on Wednesday. Have a great afternoon, and come with some questions next day. Thanks.